Hello, this is Luke Turner, and I'm back with another episode of Building an Exercise Tracking Web App from Scratch. Okay, so we're going to start with the usual stuff here. Run the database. What's going on here? Podman not happy. Docker socket not reachable. Why not? I'm going to exit and restart it here. Okie doke. Still having some issues, huh? Still doesn't work. Let's try hitting it with the upgrade, see if that helps at all. No. Seems like it didn't really help. How unfortunate. Let's see what's going on here. So Docker socket is not reachable. Let's see if there's something about this. So kind of the issue that I'm seeing here right now is Podman has started. Oh, now it's working, maybe. Did that fix it? Yes, it did. Okay, sometimes just restarting stuff randomly will kind of fix. That's basically my experience with Docker related things on Windows. It's like, it usually works with Podman Desktop, which is kind of nice because it comes with all that built-in configuration. This, by the way, is Podman Desktop. It's like a UI app that kind of manages Podman in a variety of extensions. I use this instead of Docker because like the actual Docker, the application literally does not work on my machine at all for some reason. But Podman, it works pretty well, but sometimes there's issues like you just saw. Anyway, we got the database going. We got the client code bundler running, and we have the server running. Now we can open the app. Let's just do it this way so I don't have to remember the URL. Okay, and we're in. So, what were we doing last time? As I recall, we were in the process of migrating our front-end state management tooling from using DataStar to using Alpine.js. So if we look at, for instance, the settings page here, we're using these data on click attributes and data, a bunch of other stuff, all related to DataStar, the library. If we look at the Today page, we actually migrated all of this to use Alpine, which is like X dash stuff is the Alpine library. These are two pretty similar libraries. Ultimately, I switched from DataStar to Alpine for one main reason, which is that with Alpine, I wanted to be able to catch an error in an HTTP request and store that in the Alpine state or the DataStar state. In DataStar, they call it like a signal. I wanted to be able to update a signal based on the result of the HTTP request. Didn't really seem possible with the DataStar library. That library doesn't really have like a JavaScript API to it. It's totally based around the HTML elements, it seems like. And the error handling that it does have built in was totally based on server sent events, SSE, which we're not using at all in the app. And so it just didn't feel like the right match. Unfortunately, it's always darkest before the dawn, right? And that's exactly what's going on here, where we've got some stuff using Alpine, some stuff using DataStar, and we kind of have to go through this annoying process of migrating everything to Alpine in order for it to be consistent and actually have that error handling that we want, which was the whole reason that we did this in the first place. Luckily, we've already done the Today page, which is the most complicated page. I believe we got this fully working with Alpine. If I look for like data, anything, there's just this one, which this data ID is actually used for drag and drop functionality. So that's not related to DataStar at all. So we just have to do the other pages now. Fun. One of the things I was actually thinking about kind of after the stream last week is, you know, it would be nice to use React. I'm kind of regretting some of my technology decisions in terms of the front end. In particular, I feel like Pug is kind of annoying. Basically, mainly because of the limitations around mixins and the fact that these templates are not really composable and the JavaScript that you put in them is like not really JavaScript. And it's all just kind of a pain. It's like, it doesn't actually provide the tools that I want to be able to build UI abstractions. It's like you can't really build good UI abstractions with Pug, is how it feels. So, to contrast that with something like React, which you can have server rendered React, right? In fact, you can have like JSX, which is, a extension to the JavaScript syntax, and render that just straight into HTML or something other than React altogether, and not even use React in that paradigm at all. Basically using JSX as a templating language for HTML, static HTML, an alternative to Pug. So I was thinking, that might be a nice shift. It would be even more rewriting though, of course. And then I was thinking, well, if I'm rewriting the server side to use JSX, then really I should just be using React on both the client and the server, because like, why am I using JSX on the server and then having these like X data annotations everywhere to use Alpine on the client? It's like you already are 90% of the way there. Just go all the way, use React and hydrate it on the client. With React, there's client server APIs where you can render your HTML on the server and then hydrate it with JavaScript on the client to add that interactivity. Something like an app like Next.js or whatever with the app router, that's like the whole way that everything works. Everything is like server rendered React or client rendered React. So I thought about that. And if I was building this app like as a business, basically, I guess. Or like if I wanted it to be something that was like as good as possible, I might switch. I feel like using something like React or JSX feels like a better long-term approach. But it also feels like at that point, I'm kind of making a whole new app. And I would almost rather wrap up this one with the technology choices that I've already made. Obviously, switching out Alpine is still one of those changes, but I don't want to go too far rewriting the technology stack or choosing a whole new technology stack and rewriting the app. I'd rather just kind of finish up this app, get it to a good spot, and maybe start on another one. Or maybe at that point, I'll want to rewrite it instead of starting another one. I don't know. I am kind of interested about the idea, though. In particular, like our server uses Express. I really like Express because it's simple. You know, it's got what you need. It doesn't really have anything you don't need. But with Express, we're using these views. Like, where's an example here? Like this, with res.render. And so this is rendering this view using Pug. And it seems like it shouldn't be that hard to actually render the view using JSX, right? So that's kind of, I feel like there's something interesting there where it's like maybe you're not using React. Maybe you have like limited JavaScript support in your app altogether, but you could still use JSX on the server side and render that with Express. Kind of interesting. But in the meantime, we're just going to stick with Pug, mostly because, you know, I just want to change one thing at a time. And right now we're changing the library from DataStar to Alpine. Okay. In the process of doing that, we're also going to be changing some things about the backend as well, by the way. One of the other things I was thinking too is like this file here, pretty big. We're up to almost 700 lines in our main file. Usually, you know, I abstract things into other files when there's a clear point of modularization, like a clear decoupling, right? In this case, what this file has is just a bunch of controller methods. That's all that's in here basically, and then a little bit of setup at the top. So each controller method is in a way kind of decoupled from the others. Typically, if we wanted to reorganize this file, I would create like a router file. And I think I might just go ahead and do this because why not? Gives me something to do. I can put off rewriting a bunch of front-end JavaScript state management code until I'm mentally ready. Do something a little simpler. So usually I create like a router file, and then I can create like a folder here, which maybe I'll call controllers. And then in the controllers file or folder, we can create files for like the different groups of controller methods that we're talking about here. So like an example would be like exercises, sets, and maybe user, something like that. And then we can kind of start organizing these methods into the different controllers. Now, there's another thing that we're going to want to put in here as well, maybe. I'm just going to call it views. Yeah, so let's kind of see how this feels to break it out. It's going to be a little bit tricky to break all these things out because they're all in one file. And so they have a lot of like shared variables and stuff that we'll kind of need to figure out, but that's okay. Okay. So for starters, let's pull out the kind of obvious stuff. And the most obvious thing to me is these sort of like semi-restful CRUD routes. Create, update, delete, read, I guess, is the R. Like this method here is like creating a new set, right? So that makes sense to put under sets. And we're going to get a bunch of errors. I'm going to kind of ignore that for now. This one also is updating a set. We're going to put that under sets. What is that? Oh, paste options. Deleting a set, we're going to put that under sets as well. Okay. Moving a set. So this is an interesting one. It's not really a RESTful operation, or it's not a traditional CRUD operation, I should say, but because it's got some special logic in it, it's not really, like you wouldn't want to try and implement this move logic with an update method. It's kind of a unique method. Okay, so then we have post exercises. That also goes under exercises. These other ones are going to go under view. Pretty much anything with res.render. I was thinking I would put under view. I'm not sure if that totally makes sense, but we shall see. That's part of why I'm not actually fixing any of the imports or anything yet, is because I want to see what it feels like with the arrangement that I'm going for before I make sure that all the, I've dotted my I's and crossed my T's and so on. So this one's also a view, right? This one, post exercises ID, that's updating the exercise. Post exercise ID delete, that is deleting the exercise. Post settings, that's updating the settings. So for settings, I could have it be its own page, or I could put it under user. I'll just make its own one here. Settings. User export, that goes under user. User delete, that also goes under user. Okay. So what's left in here? We've got this, which is a view. And the more I'm doing this, the more I feel like these views should maybe actually be organized alongside the other types of routes, even if they're not both views. Let's see what that feels like here. So like settings is like that. Historical. So these are both views about an exercise. So those can go in here. I'm going to put them at the top. Whoops. This is the today view. This is kind of like a set related. I'm going to put that under sets. And we have the manual, which I'm actually going to create another file for as well, manual.ts. Okay. And let's see, this exercises view, we're going to move back to the exercises thing again here, because we decided we don't want a separate views file. Let's delete that. Okie doke. And so now we have all of this stuff, which I'm going to put in the router basically. Oh, actually, let's make a new controller here for home, or a new controller file, I should say, for home. And that goes here. And then over here, we put all this stuff basically in the router. Okay, so we're going to need to do some stuff here to make this a little bit reasonable. So let's start here in the index page. We're going to clean up all these imports, but I'm going to wait for that. So usually for me, the index page for an app, ideally, and I might put these actually in with router as well. Yeah, sure. Okay. So usually for me, ideally, like the index is dealing with loading stuff from the environment and launching the app, whatever that might mean. So in this case, we're building our Express app here, which this is kind of weird. I'm noticing. I don't know. I must have just copied that. Anyway, I'll fix that at some point, but not quite yet. So, it's loading the environment and it's launching the app. If you're thinking about what routes should the app expose in the controller or in, the Express app here, which is like an instance of a router, that's going to be handled in this router kind of. And then this is going to defer stuff to these controllers. That's sort of what I'm picturing. It's not necessarily perfect of like an abstraction, but it's reasonable. So what we're going to need to do here is before we actually listen, we're going to need to do like app.use router. And the router is going to need to be exported from here. So everywhere in here that's using the app, let's see if I do this. Cannot rename it because TypeScript doesn't know what it is. What if I do this? Is this like a cheaty way to, yeah. We call this router. And I'm actually going to do like const router equals router. And this router is going to be imported from Express. Yes. User imported from DB schema. Session imported from betterauth. Okay. And Express, what if I just do this? And then this would be like express.router. Okay. Okie doke. And then this, we're going to add import from betterauth node. I don't know what this auth is supposed to be. I guess just that. Yeah. Okay. And what's going on here? Can't find these types. Might as well just do that. Response. This would be like express.response. Does that even work? What are you complaining about here? Something like that. Yeah, okay. Let's import these things here. So this view bag stuff is a place where this abstraction leaks. So the router is setting up kind of globally used functions and things, so they'll be available in our pug views, because in pug views you can't actually import stuff yourself. I can have the controller methods just pass in the functions and things that that specific view will need, but having them in this kind of view bag makes it easy to avoid the duplication there. This view engine thing we're going to have to put under index because that's part of configuring the actual app. It's not a router level setting. This router then we can import once we export this, export const router. So now we can import that here. Yep. Okay. And then this guy's got to import Multer, although we're actually not even going to need Multer anymore once we get rid of data star. Require session or redirect. Again, we're going to import that from here. So now we have, I'm going to export this separately. So now this router module or whatever is exporting a router, which you can add routes to. And it's also exporting an authenticated router, which you can add routes to in the controller methods. So I guess, let's see how this feels. How does this feel? Feels kind of annoying. This is the problem with abstractions. It's like they can get a little annoying. So sort of what I'm thinking here is an example. If we look at the exercises page, I guess everything in here is an authenticated router, which is fine. The home page, it's not authenticated. This one, they're both not authenticated. This one, they are all authenticated. This one, they're all authenticated. So as long as they're all consistent within a file, it shouldn't be too bad, actually. Basically, in this router, we're going to have to start importing these controllers and using them in the appropriate router, either authenticated or regular, I guess. So let's do that. First of all, let's say for like this user one, kind of the approach we're going to want to take for all these files is exporting a router in the file. One of the nice things about Express is that your routers can kind of be nested. Equals router, import from Express. And then this response should also be imported from Express. Oh, it doesn't like that. Import type response. And kind of the reason that I needed to type that out manually is because response is actually already a type globally available in Node, but it's like the Node response, not the Express response. So we need to kind of make sure we're using the right one here. And then instead of router, this is like, or instead of authenticated router, this is like router. Something like that. And then these guys get, fix that import, fix this other import. In fact, just fix all of the imports. Thank you. What's up with the user table? That's probably something where I had to use like a special import for it for some reason. It would be in here somewhere, right? User table. Yeah, user as user table. And I should be in user. So where was that from? From DB schema. Let's just copy this whole thing. And then get rid of all the ones that we don't want. And this is going to be a dot dot. Okay. Okay, so then the idea is because these routes need to be authenticated, we're going to use them in our authenticated router here. So it'd be like authenticated router dot use, and maybe I'll call this user router so that it's easier to import. User router. use user router. And I need to export that so I can import it. Yes. Okay, cool. And that's kind of how we're going to split out our controllers into separate files. Each file gets a router, and then those routers get wired together in the router kind of parent file here. And then we can go from there. So the only other, like if we do home here real fast, this is the only router that actually doesn't get authenticated. I'm going to kind of just copy all this actually. A lot of these imports are going to be reused across files. Not all of them though, but we can tell easily which ones. In this case, request with session instead of request with guaranteed session. And we're not going to need any of these others. And we're going to call this home router. And we're going to do home router.get/. Fine. Fine. And so that is actually going to go on the router.use home router, because this one doesn't require authentication. Makes sense. Okay. So for these others, then we're going to do something kind of similar. I'm actually going to copy this. It's probably a good baseline here for a lot of these other ones. And we're going to call this, let's just call it that. And then we'll rename it to exercise router. Yep. Add all missing imports. Don't need that one. Okay. Z, that's not getting imported. Yeah, should not be a type. DB, that's not getting imported. Should not be a type. Seems to be it's the add all missing imports sort of confused itself a little bit there, didn't it? These are not types. I mean, maybe they are types, but I'm using them as values as well as types. These two are types though. So that does make sense. Okay. Okay. And then down here we do authenticated router.use exercise router. Cool. Okay. Let's kind of copy this all again. And in the manual, so this one's also actually not going to be authenticated. So I'm going to copy this one instead. Manual. And we're going to call this manual router. Kind of confusing name. Like, what is there, a manual router and an automatic router? No, it's not that kind of manual at all. And we can import all of the things that we're missing here. Let's just do this and see what it's not a type. Yes, fine. Read file, it's not really, you can't import read file. Okay. Manual, read file. Okay. This manual parsing stuff is a good thing that, you know, maybe could be a utility function. It doesn't necessarily make sense in a controller method, but it's fine. It's fine, you know. I mean, it is arguably generating HTML, right? So it's kind of controllerish. Maybe that's just an excuse. Okay, let's do the sets one now. So here I'm going to copy all of this again. And kind of the reason that I'm doing this, by the way, right now is just to sort of bring a little bit of logic to the way the app is organized. And part of that is because as we're refactoring the front end, we're going to be changing the back end as well. And if we just keep changing things kind of ad hoc, it's like we're going to, it might not introduce bugs. It might introduce bugs, but it's also just going to kind of get less and less sustainable over time. So by splitting these into multiple files, I feel like it's going to help me mentally when we actually get to make those changes, if that makes sense. Okay, so here, going to do the same little trick again. Going to call this sets router. Doesn't really matter if it's plural or not. I don't really care about that. In the router here, let's do sets router. And I feel like I'm missing one. I forgot to do the manual router. Right. Okay. So we also are going to need a settings router. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and this will be settings router. So that seems fine. Let's just get rid of that for now. Okay, so what's going on here? Got to import some things, add all missing imports. Did that just work? Import anything weird as types. Doesn't look like it. Let's, is there a way to like clean up imports, remove unused imports? Yes, yes. Okay. And then the settings router. So again, I'm just going to copy all this over here. Whoops. Settings router. Going to call it authenticated router so we can use our symbol rename functionality to rename it. Settings router. Ta-da. Okay. And then I'm going to import it here before I forget. Settings router. Yes. Also, just as a side note, you might be wondering, like, well, if this actually doesn't need to be exported. But if we did export this authenticated router, then why couldn't we just import that router in these other files and add our routes to them in these files? The problem is that with JavaScript modules, it's like just importing that router in this file is, unless this file itself is actually imported somewhere as well, that code to add the routes is not actually going to be run. So instead of the way that I'm doing this here, another option would be for this file to export the routers, and then these other files to import the routers. And then in some other file, like say main, I would have to explicitly remember to import all of those controller files, even though I wouldn't use that import at all in the file that's importing them, if that makes sense. So either way, you're going to need to import every single controller file somewhere. Unless maybe you use like the import glob functionality or whatever, but not going that far. You're basically building your own little framework at that point. Anyway, let's add all missing imports here. You got to do the user table thing, which I'm going to copy from here. I guess I would put it in here, so it would be like user as user table. And then remove unused imports. Yes, yes. Okay, and that one, no unused imports. That one, fine. This one, fine. This one, fine. This one, fine. This one, fine. They're all using quite a few imports, aren't they? How about this one? Fine. Okay, so now here, I can also remove unused imports, and it's going to delete a lot. And the express, I'm going to do like import star as express from express. And we're going to use that instead of this require thingy. Partly because I think that's also going to actually get us types here, which is nice. Before this was just an any. Now it's actually typed. I am getting an error though, but this doesn't seem to be throwing an error. So what are you complaining about? Let me just restart the thingy here. Okay, still complaining. So this is not, so do I have to do like express.express? No. Express function is a top level function. Is it like that? Yes, it's like that. Is this also going to be like that? No, I don't think so. Okay. Fine. So we moved some stuff around. Let's give things a shot and see what has broken. Hopefully not everything. Okay, so we can refresh the page. That's fine. If we sign out, let's start kind of from the beginning. Too many redirects, huh? You can see it thinking a little bit here. So why is it redirecting so much? We're doing app.useRouter. That's fine. In the router, so let's compare for a moment the order of things in the old page here. So we use the authenticated router, and before that, we used the other non-authenticated stuff. So let's actually adjust the order in the router here, and maybe that will fix it. Something like that, right? Now does it work? Yes, now it works. So it's something to do with making sure that the home router is being routed first. Although I don't really know why that. I guess maybe it's hitting this route or something like that. It really shouldn't be though. Anyway, it's one of the things about express routes. The order matters. Okay, so here we are. This page works, obviously. If we go to the manual, this works. If we go like settings, it's not going to actually work. It's going to redirect us back here because we're not signed in. If I sign in, though, okay, this page works. That's good. If I go manage exercises, check out these pages. It's like they seem like they're working-ish. Yeah. If I go edit, seems like it's working-ish. Let's try making some changes here. So if I like check off some things, refresh the page, they're still checked off. That's good. Rename the title, refresh the page. So I just noticed that's not actually in sync with the title when that changes. Something to fix maybe. If I go settings, page works. If I export, that works. I'm not going to click delete because it's going to delete my account. If I switch those and refresh, that works. Now if I go to the manual, still works. Manage exercises, you know, these links work. If I go to the home page, when I'm logged in, it should redirect me to today. And I guess I should test out the today page too. So like if I add a new set here and set some values, that works. And if I click that, that works, shows me the values from the last time, although they're kind of not quite right somehow. I guess that it was just a dang empty set. Fine, 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 fine. Should be able to X that, goes away. Yeah. Okay. Things seem to be working after the refactor. Suddenly blind. Yeah. Using dark mode, VS Code, and light mode in the browser. I actually got some feedback about that last stream too, and I was thinking, you know, maybe I should switch my Chrome browser to dark mode. It doesn't really bother me at all because I'm kind of in a well-lit room, but you know, I do want to be a little bit sensitive to people who maybe are gremlins in a basement or something, and all of a sudden the bright light, who knows? They might die. Bottom right of a new tab, select Customize Chrome. Okay. And switch it to dark. Okay. Well, that's a little bit better. Part of the problem, though, is the app itself. Oh, there we go. It actually did work. So my app has a dark mode, but it's going to have some imperfections in there. So maybe using it in dark mode for a little while will actually be a good way to catch some of those issues. Okay. I've been kind of meaning to do that for a while too, because when I was watching my own streams back, I feel like the font was a little bit more blurry in the light mode when it's like dark on light. Whereas when the font is like light on dark, it's like it was a little bit cleaner in the video. Somehow it encoded better. I don't really know that much about how that works, but anyway, we can give it a shot. Okay, so what did we do? We did this. Refactor index file into separate modules. Yes. And yeah, should be fine. Should be fine. Okay. What is this util complaining? Okay, so this one then, first of all, we just don't need those. So let's just get rid of them. This request with session import is actually from .router now, /.router. Let's fix that. I guess, it's kind of funny. It's like, even though there was a compile error, the app still worked. And the reason is the compile error was only with this type import. So like when bun is executing this file, it doesn't, it strips out all the types or something like that. I don't know. So the fact that the type wasn't actually available didn't actually matter, but it's good to fix that. Okay. Let's just quickly check actually all of these, click through them, see if we get any type errors. There was one in auth, wasn't there? Yeah, same thing. /router. Exercises, any type errors? Nope. Sets. Nope. Manual. Oh, that's actually just the manual pages. Not going to be any type errors in there. And yeah, we're good. Okay, cool. Okay. I'm going to add these as well and amend my last commit. Awesome. Okay, so back to front-end stuff now that I've gotten to do a little bit of back-end work at least. Now I can delve into the craziness. So actually, one of the things I wanted to test out as well here, let's go to the sets thing. And in this, let's do this one, like this edit set route. I'm just going to throw an error. Throw new error. Actually, maybe an easier way to do it is going to be to add another chunky parameter here, like foo z.string. Basically, this is saying this route requires foo in the body, which obviously we're not going to be sending from the client. So we're going to get a validation error when we try and do something here as soon as we change the values of one of these. So this is what I was talking about with the dark mode, by the way. Some of these things are not, they're not right somehow. Not exactly sure what to do about that, but it's not what I'm working on at the moment. Let's open the network tab. So if I do this, 1, 2, 3, we get an error, 400 error. And so, yeah, so this is the problem. And I can kind of illustrate that up here. This bit, I actually previously had this as, what did I have it as? As this. So kind of the problem is with this alpine.evaluate logic, if we actually want to put our own value in there, we have to put it in the string. There's no like way to put a value as a parameter. You have to actually encode it directly in the string. And this method that I was doing before works fine as long as the e.message doesn't actually include a backtick character in it. Otherwise, it wouldn't work, which I'm not a huge fan of. So what I tried doing is this, replacing that with like an actual bit of escaping logic, which I thought would work, but it seems like it's not. But I also wanted to try something a little different here. So if I'm going to stage this so I don't lose these carefully crafted yet also apparently broken regular expressions. And I'm going to replace this with JSON.stringify e.message. And I'm wondering if that is all I need to do. Let's see here. What we expect to see is like a little error message to pop up. And no. So what do we got here? We have too many quotes. Okay. That's an easy fix, right? Just get rid of those quotes. Okay, ta-da, it works. It actually works. And even though there's like a quote in the error message, it's working because the JSON.stringify is escaping that quote appropriately. So I think this is going to be the way we do it. Should be fine. Should actually be properly handling every type of escape issue that we might have otherwise run into trying to do it ourselves. Okay, anyway, so that was something that I had been thinking about at the end of last time. We did that change kind of near to the end of the last stream. Just going to commit this, fix escaping for error, client-side error messages. And, you know, even if the escaping here is not perfect, which I think it actually is fine now, assuming e.message is always a string. Even if it's not, it should be fine, I guess. But where was I going with that? Oh yeah, because this is front-end code though, even if the escaping is not perfect, like that's not going to result in a security issue or anything like that. If we were escaping user values on the back end, we would need to be a lot more cautious. You know, like if you were trying to construct a SQL query, doing stuff like that, it's like, no, do not do that. Use an actual parameter. But when we're doing this stuff on the front end, it's more like, you know, worst that could happen is they break their own, or the UI breaks, you know, it wouldn't really be the user's fault. But if we had an error with the wrong values in it, UI could break in the way that we just saw where that error message didn't show up. Okay, so anyway, fix that. Anyway, so now we got to maybe do this console.error as well. Doesn't really matter, but makes it show up better. And I'm just going to put this into the last commit as well. Okay, so now we can actually get into the thick of it in terms of replacing our data attributes with X attributes. So let's kind of just go from the bottom to the top because we already did the today page. Now let's do the settings page. So what are we going to change here? Let's see. Let's look for data dash. So we've got some buttons. Those should be easy enough to replace. We've got this delete modal signal. That should also be easy enough to handle. One of the interesting things about it, though, is that this is a global. So in DataStar, signals are defined anywhere in your DOM tree, and they apply globally to the whole page. For Alpine, I don't know if it calls them signals, but reactive values in Alpine are scoped to just the DOM elements that are children of the element that the data is declared on. So like if I were to just naively replace this with like X data equals delete modal false, something like that. The problem is that because this check down here isn't actually inside the same DOM tree, it's not actually going to have access to that data value. And because this modal is in a block and then this content is also in like another block, I don't actually even have access to the parent element of both of these things from this page. Kind of annoying. Now, why did I do that in the first place? So I've got this modal block. It doesn't really do anything. I think I did that to give it a kind of a portal here, because if I actually put the modal block underneath this field, it's like the styling of the modal is affected by the styling of the parent elements, the notification. So this is sort of like a portal in React terms, if you're familiar with a portal. I see what you mean. Now I'm getting blinded. Jeez. Okay. Let's see here. I feel like this had a portal. That's kind of what I was looking for here. Donkey. I don't know. Just show me the docs. Yeah, teleport. Makes it sound pretty cool, doesn't it? But all it's doing is moving DOM nodes around. Okay. So can be used on any element. It'll find by attaching it to a template element. What even is a template element? I feel like I've never heard of that element before. The template element serves as a mechanism for holding HTML fragments are generated immediately into Shadow DOM. Okay. So this might have been like added more like around the time that web components were built, something like that. But anyway, it's just like a kind of as the name implies, it's a template. Fine. Okay. So you're telling Alpine to append that template to the provided selector. So you would do something like under here, you could have like template, X teleport equals body. And this X data thingy, we're going to need to put, we can put that up here. Seems like an appropriate spot for it. And so this, let's just fix this too. It would be like X colon on, or X dash on colon click, delete modal equals true. And then the template, so that's where this is all going to go underneath. Dunk. Then here, this would be like data class is active. So this is setting the is active class based on whether delete modal is true or false. So we could maybe just set .is active to always true. I don't know if this is going to work. And if we do X show, right? X show. Yeah. So X show when delete modal. Since it's already a Boolean, we don't need to do a conditional check there. And down here, we're going to do the same X on click thing. X on click, delete modal equals false. right? Same down here. Let's actually just copy this whole thing. We can put that right here and right here. Yeah, okay, let's see. Let's just try this and see how terribly broken it is. See, I don't know why that is the way it is, but I'm not a huge fan. Some of the dark mode stuff with Bulma, it's like it kind of gets it, but it kind of doesn't. So I guess the problem is like this is the normal font size for dark mode or font color, which it totally makes sense. Like it's the same as this, right? The problem is the very light background of the notification. So if I actually got rid of like this is light, then it should, look, I mean, it looks really weird, but it's actually, the text is readable. But the is light looks a lot better in light mode. And it also distinguishes it from the button. I wonder, Bulma notification, is there something here I should be doing, like to make it more flexible for light mode and dark mode? I mean, so like this looks fine, right? In dark mode, which is what we're in right now. It is kind of, it stands out a little bit more than I might like. But the problem is that combined with the rendering of the other thing, this, which isn't inheriting the right color. Like that. I don't know. I feel like stuff like that is kind of being the problem. Well, okay, so that's actually defining the Bulma body color variable. Like this, yeah. Hmm. Hmm. Kind of annoying. Well, whatever. I actually do have a to-do task to clean up some of the dark mode stuff, so I'm sort of going to do that all at once. I'm not going to worry about that at the moment. So what happens if I try to delete my account here? So we do get this pop-up. If I click cancel, it goes away. Seems to be working pretty well. In fact, it's working so well that now I'm almost like surely it's not working perfectly from the very beginning, right? Surely not. I don't really want to click delete. Let's just update the user route here to not actually delete my account. And then if I try it, so if I click here, here, or here, it gets rid of the modal. If I click delete, it redirects me to the home page, which then redirects me to the today page because it didn't actually log me out. Okay, so that's working. That's good. That's good. And, the way that's actually working is with this form, which is kind of weird in and of itself, but fine. That's not specific to Datastar or Alpine, so I don't need to replace it. Kind of the reason I used a form here is because once the user is deleted, it's like we don't want to stay on the same page. It's going to redirect us. So by using a form, it's like we're actually redirecting the user agent to a new URL instead of like doing an AJAX request and then maybe manually redirecting it after that or something. But it's just a bit odd because as soon as this route is hit, it's like your user doesn't exist anymore and this page is not going to work. By this page, I mean this page, right? Okay, so that's fine. In fact, that's more than fine. In fact, once we clean up these other modals to also use teleport, I'll be able to get rid of that modal block altogether. And the nice thing about that too is like I've got this modal block. I don't know, it's just something that I had to do in order to emulate that teleport functionality, but now we actually have it in our JavaScript library. Okay. Anyway, fix all the other on-clicks. So we've got another data on-click here. This one's straight up another redirect. So we can just do this. And the way that this works, it's redirecting the window.location to the user export page, but this page is actually sets the headers to tell the browser to download it as a file. So that's why, like if I'm over here, I click export, it actually downloads that as a file. It doesn't like take me off this page at all. Okay, even though I'm adjusting the window.location. Cool. These other ones, so this is going to be the interesting part for this page. We're going to replace these with select Alpine. And we're going to need to remember what that even means. So let's look at our mixins. We created this select Alpine mixin. It's got a signal name. It's got an onChange handler, and it's got an array of values. So the array of values is the same. The signal name is going to be this. And the actual signal here is going to be an object of the user settings. So let's see. So this block has got the user preferred unit settings in it. So we're going to define a kind of a data chunk for that. So this is going to have, it's going to be like preferred units. Units is an object that has weight, and it's going to also have distance. And the weight is going to be let's see how we did this in the today page. I did like this JSON.stringify thing. Maybe I'll do that actually here. So if I did like xdata preferred units is, or like really like xdata JSON.stringify. Stringify preferred data or preferred units is user.preferred units. And that user should always be present in the view. So by doing that, we should have that now in the thing. The problem is the user preferred units, I don't recall if those are always 100% always going to be set or not. I feel like I kind of did something where I was going to always set them, but I don't really remember. Let's just assume that they're not always set. It's always a safe assumption. Okay. In any case, so we've got our preferred units here. And so now for the select Alpine thing, it's going to be, so the signal name, got to check this again. This is another example of what I mean with Pug, where it's like, you know, we don't have like types or anything, so I have to always check the order of the parameters for my mixins and things like that. There's no like object. I mean, I guess you could maybe do an object type parameter, but I don't even know if you can or not. Okay, signal name on change values. So values is weight units. On change, we know we need to change that. And the signal name is going to be preferred units, units.weight, right? And then, yeah, because it's kind of similar to here. And then we're going to be using this fetch business. I'm just going to copy this. Fetch post slash settings. And it's going to be sending preferred units. Just like that. Okay. And so here, so this is kind of what I was thinking about the default values. We kind of need to put that here instead of down here in the select. So like preferred units weight is default unit weight user. And distance is default unit distance user. And kind of what this is doing, the default unit thing is it's like looking at the value that the user has as the preferred unit. And if they don't have one, it picks a reasonable one. I think it defaults to imperial, like miles and pounds. Anyway, so by doing that here, we can default the values of these selects to the right things. And so preferred units.weight, this one down here is going to be like preferred units.distance. Don't need that. And this fetch is like exactly the same. Right? So now just there's no data, anything. Okay. Okay, so let's see what that is like here now. So kilograms, miles. If I change one of these, okay, so it's complaining, it actually worked, but it's complaining about my response value here. So if we look at the sets thing, we were kind of returning this status okay thing. If we look at these settings, we're actually just returning the status. So it wasn't really a true JSON-based API at all. But we've since updated our error handling code expects the response to be in a JSON format. So we need to fix that. Okay. So now I should be able to switch to kilograms and kilometers and refresh the page. And it is kilograms, kilometers, and I can switch it back to pounds, miles, refresh. Okay, seems like it's working. And if let me do a bit of a hack here. If I connect to my database and actually delete that preferred units column altogether, let's just like delete. How do I null it out? Null, right? Commit that? Yes. Okay, so now what happens if I refresh the page? As you can see, it's defaulting to pounds and miles. There should still be nothing in the database. Fine. If I go to the today page, it still works. It's defaulting to the right things. If I actually change one of these, though, now the database should have the new value for both things. So kilograms is the one I changed, and miles is just already there. Okay, so that's working fine. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Let's make this its own commit. So we're going to call this use Alpine for settings page. Yes. Okay, mix-ins, skip. Manual, nothing in there, skip. Index, no interactive elements, skip. Historical page, we've got some data stuff. So I guess let's just handle them. X on click. Yep. So these are just, let's actually illustrate what's going on here too. So in the exercises page, we can go to the historical exercises for one of these things, and we have a look back picker here where we can say, by default, it just looks back, I think 1 year ? But here you can kind of pick like, oh, look back all time, and then there's more data. Or you can even pick like a certain specific number of days if these default things don't, they're not doing it for you. So if you do like 1, 2, 3, then it does that. So that's what this interactivity is for. What it's actually doing is setting this like look back query parameter. So the backend, gets that and adjusts the query that it's running based on that value. Let's just update all of these data on click to X on click. This one, I guess, also is like X on change. Yeah, fine. Instead of this evt.target.value, I think for Alpine, there's like a specific thing. The event object, the magic event property. One of the things I'm noticing reading the Alpine docs is they really like to call things magic. I don't really know what's so magic about it. It feels like a variable, but maybe that's the magic part. Okay. Okay, fine. So what else is left? Just the interactivity to like show or hide the data picker when we click on the button there. So that should be simple enough. We can just change this to like dropdown dot is active. We're going to have that class on there all the time. And then we would have like X on or X show when show look back. And then we would have like X data show look back false. And then this one, X on show look back equals not show look back. Okay, doke. So now that should be working, right? Well, it's totally gone. Okay, so right. So the issue is that we don't actually want to hide this whole thing because the dropdown trigger still needs to be shown. We just want to toggle the isActive class, I guess. We could put the X show down here, right? Instead. And that might work, but there might also be other effects that isActive class is doing. So I kind of want to maybe actually just toggle that class. So how would I do that here? There's like a thing, isn't there? Isn't there like a thing like bind? I can bind a class. Yeah. Okay. So it would be like x bind class equals something. It would just be equal show look back. So if show look back, then is active, else empty. And get rid of this X show here. So now does it work? It works. Awesome. So if I inspect this, we get is active. If I click, it goes away, comes back, goes away, comes back. Okie doke. So now all of the data stuff's done for this page. So historical page, updated, or let's use a similar pattern, use Alpine or historical page. Just heard a bit of a noise on my porch. Maybe it's like a package or something. Okay, so that one's done. exercises page. Again, data star, there's nothing. That's simple enough to think about. And I don't have the any selects. Here, there's some. And then the error page, there's none. And layout, there's actually a bunch as well. Okay, so let's focus on this exercises page here. Okay, so what is this page? This is a single exercise edit page. So if I go here and then edit, this is where we're at. So again, we've got the same modal business that we had at the other place. I might actually kind of copy this part. I guess I don't need that comma there. Doesn't really matter though. And that's going to be here, right? It's going to be here. And then these all need to get indented too, right? And this goes away. This all gets indented underneath. I guess underneath the notification makes sense again. Going to do X data. Let's just copy this again, maybe. X data, delete modal false. See, one of the nice things about this, like this is a good example where now that we actually have this X teleport functionality, we could maybe put all of this into like its own mixin. If we had this, you know, modal stuff popping up in a bunch of places. We couldn't do it before because part of the code was in one block and part of it was in another block. And you can't have a mix-in cross blocks like that. But now that it's not crossing blocks, it's possible. But I'm not going to do that right now. But it's kind of another illustration of like how Alpine might help us in the future. Anyway, so we've got X on click, delete modal, true. That we just get rid of altogether. Another nice thing, like for these, you'll notice like this has like an underscore in there, and that was necessary to avoid sending this front end state signal to the back end when calling these method or these like post or whatever. Because with data star, it's like it just automatically sends all of the signals at once. Like, what? I don't really know why. I mean, that's fine as a default behavior, but there's no way to change it. Except for like doing it based on a form, which has its own set of problems. So with Alpine, you know, because I'm not using these data star things at all, it's like I have a lot more convenience. Of course, I could do that without switching to Alpine, but the error handling was something I couldn't do without switching to Alpine. Anyway, okay, so X on click, delete modal false. Gonna do the same thing down here. And now what else are we? Yeah, so okay. So we've updated the modal stuff, I think. Let me just try it. I'm gonna do a new exercise test delete. And then if I delete it, it should pop up a thing. The X and everything still works. And then if I click delete, it deletes it. Awesome. Yeah. Okay, so that all works. So now we just need to update these signals here. So probably this whole thing, I might put inside, I guess, a template. I don't know. I could put it in like a div, but the template seems all right. And maybe I will put just the form stuff inside the template here. So that would be all of this. Yes. And the template is where we're going to have our X data declaration. And this is going to have the JSON.stringify exercise, for example. Okay. So then title's fine. except this, we actually are going to want to bind this value. We noticed this earlier. This doesn't dynamically change when we update the exercise name. So this is going to be like x bind equals exercise.name. Oh yeah, let's put this in like that. Okay, so it's an object with a key called exercise, which has the property, which is the exercise. Okay, and then, so like here, for instance, the default value exercise.name is fine. Instead of using all this data signals name and bind and stuff, we would do like x model is exercise.name. And we would also do like x. Let's go over here and copy one of these. X on input debounce blah 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 bits. So kind of the idea with this is, you know, the user's changing the value. We don't want them to have to like click away, you know, to blur the element before the change handler fires. So we're using the input handler, which immediately fires as soon as they type a keystroke. The problem is if they're typing a bunch of keystrokes, which they will be, that's going to send a bunch of requests to the backend. So we use debouncing to, you know, mitigate the effect of somebody typing normally. Okay, yes, fine. And I'm also going to copy this business here, just so I don't have to think about it too hard. So we're posting to exercises / exercise.id. And what we're going to be sending is exercise, I guess. And let's just see how this feels. So then down here, you know, we would do like x on click. This is a real mess, a real mess of something. Okay, so what do we actually want to do here? We want to, let's just do this for now. So we definitely want to send a backend request. And I guess the idea here is we're going to want to toggle this parameter value as well. And that's fine. So if we look at the exercise type, because I don't really remember at the moment, parameters is an array of parameter definitions, which each have name, ID, and data type. So, you know, this is something that probably I should refactor at some point. I'm not going to do it now because I'm just going to confuse myself trying to do two big refactors at once. But this parameter should actually just be an ID of arrays, or an array of IDs. Because like this has, you know, these properties of the parameter, but it's like, we don't need to know that because we already know, like there's a list of all the parameters. As soon as you give me the ID, I can use that list of all parameters to be like, okay, what's the weight or what's the data type for that ID? What's the name for that ID? So by duplicating that in each exercise, it's like you're denormalizing your data and making it easier to mess things up. And you're also making some of these front-end things a little bit more annoying to deal with. Because now this exercises array is like, or this exercise object has a parameters array, but it's not just IDs. So I have to kind of deal with that here if I want to send it back with the right values in it. Yes. So let's do that then. Okay. So the default, so yeah. Okay, so x bind class there's going to be like a something, and if it's true, this is going to be is success. Otherwise, it's just going to be null. or an empty string or whatever. Okay. And then this something is going to need to be a piece of logic that decides whether or not this parameter is set in this exercise object. So it'd be like exercise.parameters.find p.id equals param.id. Okay, let's just start with that. We'll start there. I don't think it's going to be fully working yet. And this logic here is to make sure we're rendering it right client side first, or server side first. I don't know if that's necessary with Alpine or not, though. Okay, so first of all, that whole business is gone. I guess because I wonder if the template stuff just like disappears. Maybe I'll just call it a div for now. Yeah, fine. Okay, so these are all selected first, which is right. If I get rid of this, did that actually even get rid of it? I don't know, it's hard to tell because of the syntax highlighting. Let's get rid of it properly. So now it's not detecting the right thing. What are we complaining about here? Duration is not defined. So this, okay, gosh, has to be a string. Okay, so now that's working. I'm still getting a bunch of errors. What the heck? Failed to execute xbind exercise.name. B-U-M-B-B-E. Dumbbell. Okay, so it's doing something weird here. I don't know if that's, let's just get rid of that for the moment. See if that is the only thing that's complaining or if there's other stuff going on. Yeah, okay, so that was it. For some reason that bind is not super happy. Oh, I should be using text, right? X text. Okay, so now that should be happy. Yes, and if I change it, yeah, it updates the title too. Cool. Right, so now it's complaining about a bunch of stuff. We knew it wouldn't totally work, but what we can see is the it's actually selecting the right things here. And if I go back to like this other one, it's only selected some of them. So it's properly doing the right thing, I think. The problem is now when we send this back, so let's, enable something here. We're sending back, okay, an exercise object. So first of all, that should just be exercise, not in an object form. And then the other problem is this parameters array. Like these are the actual like reps weight assisted. If I check off distance, it's not actually going to add the distance to that exercises array before sending off the post, if that makes sense. So it's not actually doing anything. I click this, it doesn't actually, or I guess I got to refresh the page. So now click that. It's not actually adding that to the parameters. Okay, so we want to do that. And I'm just going to do that with another little expression. So we would say something like exercise dot parameters dot push. Thing is, I want it to be in the proper order is the problem. Let's look at the exercises controller here, see what's happening when we're updating an exercise. So when you create one, it's just setting parameters to an empty array. That's fine. When you're updating one, it's like iterating through all of the all parameters. And if the body has parameter.id in there, then it's pushing that as a parameter. So because it's doing it this way, we're getting a consistent order of the parameters every time. So this actually could work, kind of. I might just have something where it's sort of like an array of the parameters sort of similar to what we had before. I don't know. Let's just do it this way. So I think if I use the push and rewrite a little bit of the backend code, it should work. And, you know, I might need to add all parameters as a signal here. So if I do like push all parameters dot find p dot id equals param dot id. Okay. Let's see if that works or what it does in general. Okay, so now if I click it, so it updated in the UI, which is good. It updated in the request, which is good, right? The problem is the backend, you know, is not checking that array, which is fine because I need to fix that. Before it was based on, basically the structure of this controller was based a lot on how the datastar signals worked. Now that we're not using datastar, it's like we're more free to do this in kind of a proper way where, you know, this, instead of just being like this all parameters declaration schema, it would actually have a parameters object, which would be this, but then we're going to update that schema as well. Let's see, how many usages does this have? So just the one should be, yes, okay. Okay, and this is just all parameters dot, it's like this weird thing. Basically for each parameter, it's saying it's expecting that parameter ID and then a Boolean. What we're actually going to be doing here is like an array of parameter objects. So let's just do that here. So this is going to be an array, not an object, z.array. And in that, it's going to be a parameter object. z.object. Come on, I can type. And this is going to be maybe I'll call this like parameter schema. This is like the schema for a single parameter. And I can do that here. Export cons parameter schema. And this is going to be z.object. And what we're going to have in here is ID, which I kind of want to be like, it has to be one of the proper IDs. Name doesn't really matter. Data type doesn't really matter. And in fact, I might just have the name, the ID here. Let's see what that looks like without actually building a separate function for it here. So scroll, 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 scroll. So this is going to be an array of objects with ID being an enum of all parameters dot map p.id. And this is complaining because it doesn't, it's not 100% sure that all parameters array is not empty. So basically I'm telling it, yes, it's not empty. Cool. And we're ignoring the other fields because we don't actually need them. So down here, this would be like body as any dot parameters. And this is an example of what I'm talking about. Like, we already have these all parameters. Like the front end doesn't need to send us anything other than the ID. But the front end also needs those other values in order to like render these UI elements with the name. So it's kind of like, but in theory, if we updated the front end to like only send the ID in those things somehow, that would be fine. Okay, what are we complaining about here? I messed up the validation file. So this file, I can just delete that whole, geez. I can just delete this whole thing. Yes. And here, I can just delete that as well. Yes. Okay. Now what? Reload. What's it complaining about here? I mean, it seems okay. This one seems okay. Let me restart this so I can see what my actual error is here. Okay, there isn't one. It's fine. Totally fine. So now if I add distance, okay, it's actually working and we're getting that same error that we got before around the JSON response format. So I'm just going to update all of these. Everything that's using send status. Well, the 404. So here we can actually throw an error. Let's do that. Throw a new error. Error. Exercise does not exist. Sure. That's going to get picked up by our error handling logic. That we didn't have before, which is probably why we use that approach. Then, same thing here. Throw a new error. I mean, just returning a 404 is not the worst thing in the world either, but it's not going to have the right view and everything. Seems fine. And then this send status here is just going to be that business like that. Yes. Okay. Okay, so we're in test 2 here. It looks like it cleared those out, which isn't a good sign. So let's try adding reps. So it's sending the parameters array ID reps. If I refresh the page now, that's not selected. So that's not working. If I update this, it's not working for some reason either. Sending, okay, so that one, yeah, that should just be exercise. That's the problem there. Now if I do test 1, 2, 3, that should be working. If I refresh the page, it's got the new name. Yeah. So there's a problem with this other thing though. So body dot parameters. Okay, yeah, so this actually has to be dot find p.id parameter.id. Right? And p, so, and can I get rid of this body as any maybe? Yeah, okay. That was a workaround for the weird schema we had before. Looks like I got a spammer in chat that may just ban this person. Goodbye. See you never, hopefully. Okay. Okay. Where was I? Back to the thing. So now this should work, right? So if I do check, 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 refresh, they're checked. Sweet. If I uncheck, does that work? No, it doesn't work, of course, because I just have the logic to push. Kind of annoying. So this is kind of annoying. This is exactly where I'm finding that type, the type of that parameters object to be a little bit inconvenient. It's not like an object or a set or something. It's like an array of objects. So anyway, we would have to do something like exercise. So like, so if it has the parameter, then we're going to do something. Otherwise, we're going to push it. And this is the world's longest string. So what are we going to do? Well, we have to splice that parameter out, right? So it would be like exercise dot parameters equals exercise dot parameters dot filter p.id is not equal to this weird param.id thing. Okay. So what are we doing? We're saying if it has the parameter, then replace the array with a copy of that array, but without that parameter. So it's everything where the ID is not that parameter. Otherwise, add it. Okay, something like that. So now if I do like dunk, that works. If I refresh the page, it's deleted. Cool. If I add a bunch, refresh, cool. If I go to the today page and add one of those, it's got what? Weight, assisted, and distance. Yeah, or weight, distance. So this has weight, yeah, weight, distance, and duration, right? Yeah, right. Okay. Okie doke. So that now is working. This param is set thing is not used anywhere anymore. We can get rid of that. Yeah, okay. I mean, I feel like by, we're making things a little bit better as we're switching things to use Alpine, but we're kind of getting closer to being more of a traditional RESTful API instead of like this weird thing where the back end is designed around how the signals worked on the front end before, because you couldn't actually change that with DataStar at all. Okay. This seems good. Remove this validation thing we don't need anymore. The settings page update, I mean, I'll just put that in here too, whatever. So this is adding or use Alpine for exercise edit page. Okay. Okay, so then we have the actual layout is, I think, the last thing that has like data stuff in it. So this one has two pieces of functionality. Well, three really. So there's the signal for the theme. There's the signal for the nav menu here. There's the signal for just these on-click handlers, because these handlers are not actually, it's just running some JavaScript. So those are the simplest ones. Let's fix that first. So this just becomes X on : click. Simple. This we already, we're using that X on click for. Can use that down here as well. X on click, X on click. And this would be like data or X show, X show. And this could just be like theme. And theme. And I remember there was something kind of weird about like the data theme attribute or something. I don't know if we need to keep tracking these separately now that we're using Alpine, but for now I'm just going to do the minimal change here. I think it was like for data star, you couldn't track things on the HTML element or something. That's why we have this weirdness down here. Okay, so up here we also have, so we've got to do like our X data thing. I'm going to put that on the bod. Well, yeah, I'll put it on the body, like X data theme light, I guess. We're going to copy the default that we have here. So if we have that now, let's go over here, refresh. So switch it to dark, switch it to light. Ah, my eyes. Ah, my eyes. Okay. So one of the things I'm noticing here, though, kind of interesting, we're using the, by default, so let's reload the page. We're using the default theme from the browser. But you can see down here, like this is showing the little night. So like it thinks it's light mode theme right now. So really this default value needs to be interpreted from the browser. Is there a way for JavaScript to know that? Probably. JS find browser color scheme. Okay, this thing. And then there's like the event listener stuff. I mean, that, like if somebody changes that while the page is loaded, I'm like, that's on you. I'm not going to write code to handle that at the moment. So if this is a thing, then we would do dark. Otherwise, we would do light. And this, I guess, I'm just going to put that in parentheses to make it a little bit more obvious. Okay, so now if I refresh this, so now it knows it's dark mode, and I can switch it to light mode if I want. My eyes, switch it back to dark mode. Cool. Okay. And, you know, I could make this, it's like a little helper function. Like down here. Like export function get browser theme. And it would be like return, if that's true, then it's going to return dark. Otherwise, it's going to return light. And then that would go down here. And then I can call that here, doing like, this would just be like underscore set dot get browser theme. Right? And is that, it's not working. What are you complaining about? Theme is not defined. Underscore set is not defined. Is it not? Is that not what I put it on the window as? Is it because it's Alpine trying to do some magic? X data. Well, I thought that would work. Well, let's try it over here too. So for these X on clicks, I'm curious because this is also using that same underscore set business. If I click on this, so that does work. It's only when it's being used in the data thingy that it's having a problem. And maybe it's actually because the script import well, that's kind of annoying. Okay, let's just not worry about that for now. I could fix that. I think I could fix that anyway. The problem is we can't really move the script around because it's put in the spot where it is because it initializes Alpine. So it kind of has to initialize it after the body element was created, but before anything else. So like really that, I mean, I might still have a problem here actually. No, I guess it's okay. Light mode, dark mode. Okay. Sign out, sign in. Then we also have to fix the navbar menu. Gonna be the last thing. And then we're finally done with this little migration we've got going on here. So what do we have here? So first we have this X, this data atter. So this is setting area expanded. So this would be like an X bind colon area expanded is equal to show nav menu. And here we can put that probably here, let's say. So X data show nav menu is false by default. And so then we also have, we can get rid of that. I can probably get rid of that too. And here we have x bind class equals if showNav menu, then something, otherwise null. What was that something again? It's supposed to be is active, right? Okay. And this data on click, is just going to be x on click, toggle showNav menu. And then this down here also needs a this exact thing here, I guess. Okay, and we still have two datas, and that's those two things, so don't worry about those. So now, if I refresh this, let's mobilize it. If I click this thing, pops up the menu, and the thing switches to an X. If I click it again, it goes away. Cool, so that does work. Love to see it. I should be able to switch pages here. Yep, okay. Okay, so use Alpine for layout. Cool. Okay, so we pretty much switched to Alpine. Next up, get rid of data view, data star, whatever it's called. So this can just get straight up deleted. Yeah, I can remove it from the import or the layout here, remove the import for data star, get rid of that. Yep, okay. So then just like delete data star. If I search for data star, is there anything else? Just get rid of that. Don't know why that was there. And I don't need it in my package.json either. Let's npm or bun uninstall. Oh my God. Gotta love that error message. Okay. Anyway, I guess I don't have to specify the -d. I can just uninstall it. And that removes it from the lock file, removes it from that thing, and remove that from that thing. Okay, yeah. Cool. Okay. We did the thing. We finally migrated off of Datastar and onto Alpine. I don't think I even had a task for that, but it's done. Okay. What do we want to do now? What time? Let's do a quick time check. Oh man, we're at time already. 2 hours. Is there a little thing that I want to do in the meantime, maybe? Just a little, one little after dinner mint. I don't know, these don't really feel like after dinner mint level issues. One thing I actually am kind of curious about is this client bundler. So as a point of reference, in our package.json here, we have this client bundling using esbuild, and this works totally fine. So maybe I'm a fool for trying to change it since it works fine. But since we actually started this project, I think, Bun has added a built-in bundler. And it's supposedly faster than the ESBuild bundler. Not that I really care about that. But I'm always a fan of, reducing the number of dependencies. So if bun handles something, I would rather use bun's thing, assuming it actually works. And that's kind of the big assumption that I don't totally know. So this would just be like bun build. Bun build. And this would be like out deer. Right? And the entry point is client main.js. The problem is that out file, well, that should be okay. Out deer public. Okay. And what other options do we have here? A bunch. Where's my watch option? Minify. Definitely want minify, of course. I already have that in here. We need something for this define business. It's literally called the same thing. Man, I feel like they really copied the ESBuild API here. Not that I have a problem with that at all. It's a little bit different. So this would be like define prod equals true. And I might as well just single quote that, just like in case. And this part would just replace that part. Is there a source map parameter here? Source map? I want like the parameter though. Source map equals linked. Probably linked. And is there a watch? There's a watch. Okay. Yes. Let's just see what this does now. So if I restart this thing, invalid source map setting linked. But I thought that I set that. Linked, inline, external, or none. Oh, is my version of bun too old here? Maybe I'm using an old version of bun. Bun build help. Source map. No, I mean, I don't know if it's old or not, but well, I guess, yeah, because there's no linked option. So it is old. Bun. Can I just like bun update itself somehow? Yeah, bun upgrade. This could be a terrible idea or it could be an excellent idea. Let's do bun version 1.1.1. I'm going to make a note of that. Just in some random spot. And then if I do bun upgrade, it did the thing. So now if I do source map linked, it works. Glad to see that. And it should be building it to this file here still. So let's, let's try a thing. If I refresh this page, it doesn't work because I have to restart my server, which is a good test too, actually. So if I do whatever I did before, bun run dev. So now it worked, but I'm getting an error. Unexpected token export. Okay, so this is, I wonder, okay, so there's probably some kind of setting for that. Format, only ESM is supported. So kind of what I'm thinking is, let's look at what we had going on before here. Didn't really specify a format before, but if the output format is only ESM, I think that means I need a attribute on the script tag. And to think all of this just to remove a dependency that actually was working totally fine. But I do like removing dependencies. I also kind of like experimenting with bun stuff. A lot of the bun functionality is really good. They do kind of have this problem sometimes where it's like, because it's a whole brand new tool, they don't support like the old version of things, only like the absolute latest stuff, which I think is kind of the problem here as well. Donkey type module. I guess. I don't know if that's actually going to work though. Will that work? Let's see. So type module. So the problem with that is, we were able to load the thing. I don't know why that error is popping up. Not a huge fan of that. We were able to load the thing, but is that actually, yeah, it's actually starting the Alpine script and stuff. Okay. If I go to today, we still see like some of this stuff popping up occasionally. I feel like we didn't seem to have that problem before for some reason. I'm not sure why switching it to a module is going to change that, but basically I believe that's something where it's like if we add like an X cloak here, say, that'll stop that flashing, maybe not. X cloak. Uncaught error set is not defined. Yeah, okay, so it's definitely doing something a little different when we're importing it as a module. Slightly more complicated than what I wanted to have to try and figure out. But this is fine. The new version of Bun seems to be working fine. It's really just this, the fact that it only supports the module format. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a new branch, create a new branch, switch off ES build. I'm going to commit these changes, switch off ES build onto bun build. And then I'm going to switch back to main. And when I want to resume working on that, I will have those changes that I just made as a point of reference. But for now, I think I'm not going to. Okay, let's just push our stuff here. Git push. Okie doke, making some good progress. All of the progress today was totally refactoring. There was no actual functional change, but we're getting ourselves into a good place to actually make some more functional changes in the future, I feel like. And if we look at the notes, again, I don't think there's really anything to update here. I might add a quick note. See, what was the branch called? Switch off ES build. Switch off ES build branch. Okay. Well, with that, I think I'm going to call it for the day. Thanks, y'all. See you next week.